Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing? We're going to wait a little bit, see if anybody pops on. Today will be our talk about posture. It's going to really change the way you think about posture. I'm going to tell you that, your mom and your teachers may not have been right all along. So that'll be fun. My mom might even be watching. We'll see. I'll give it a few minutes. It's like rainy here. It's kind of cool. It's feeling kind of nice. Feeling like maybe it would be fall soon. We'll see. It'll probably get hot again, but we'll see. Let's see. And I also want to make sure I've got my comments set up. The light's a little bit weird. There you go. That might be a little bit better. Well, hello, Melinda. Yay. I'm going to wait a few minutes and see if anybody else wants to pop in. But we will get going shortly. It's going to be a whole new perspective on posture. A whole new kind of shift. Yeah, it's really a nice day out, isn't it, Melinda? It's kind of, I guess nice as far as temperature, right? I kind of like these overcast, a little bit breezy, but not like downpour. So it's kind of nice. Yeah. So we're going to talk about, I guess I'll go ahead and start and see if anybody wants to, they'll just hop on when they're ready. So we're going to talk about how the whole understanding of what posture is has been with us for a long time. It actually comes back from, go way back to like the ancient days when you think about, I got some of these things down here where posture really was a way of sort of like showing your status in the world. It's where this upright posture came from. It was like, the gods were like this, and when you approached the gods, you were up in this upright posture. If you were slumped and hunchback, then you were lower on the totem pole. And, posture really has become more of like an aesthetic thing. Yeah, I love this break from the heat. It's great. So, the ancient Greeks thought that posture was defining their character, right? And there were a lot of things mixed in with mythology and all of that. And that's one way that we've brought along this thought of posture throughout the world. And then you have things like there were these miscorrect posture. Like there were pageants, who had to show who had the best posture. And so this just became synonymous with good posture being this upright position. And the other thing that's interesting is that there's been recent studies showing that posture is not necessarily posture in the way we think of it. Okay, posture in this upright posture or the lack thereof, like slumping, is not really as tied to shoulder pain, back pain, pain symptoms that it's been given this reputation for. So there's just some things to think about as far as history of posture. Okay, so what I'm going to show you now, how many of you guys, I'm just trying to do my notes real quick. How many of you guys feel that posture, think that you know what good posture is? And when anytime I mention to people that I'm a postural restoration therapist, the first thing they do, is like, oh hi, nice to know ya. And and there's a big problem with it in the military too. I was in the military for quite a while. I was in the Air Force for about 8 years, and every time I'd bring up, even if I wasn't talking to them about posture, it was just ingrained in them. Anytime I'd say anything to them, it was like, yes, ma'am. And I said, well, relax, don't sit up so straight. Yes, ma'am, and it's a hard habit to break. And what I want to reintroduce you to is what an ideal posture really is, and is there really an ideal posture? Posture really is it's like a boundary that our body can go in and out of before getting too far off getting stuck into one position. So it's not like this perfect little snippet, right? There's this range of where, we should be able to move in and out of and not get stuck. Ooh, Sangini's she might even have some input on this one. So So that's one thing to understand, is it's not like this perfect rigid moment in time or position that you need to be in to be considered in, quote, good posture. So I want you to think about that as well. When I talk about an ideal posture, that's what I'm saying. But I want to talk to you about what maybe is wrong with this upright posture. Okay, we talked about how we got to this point to where we all think that this upright posture is ideal. It looks nice. It looks prestigious. Shoulders back, stand up tall. It makes you look aesthetically proper. And it very well may be, and I really believe that it is, not really giving us any positive input into our bodies. Okay? So what is wrong with that upright posture? Okay, one of the biggest things that is wrong with an upright posture, and when I say upright posture, I mean, let me show you in sitting, tall, upright, right, shoulders back, ribs forward, sitting on the front end of your sit bones, upright posture, okay? So what is wrong with this, what can be wrong with this, is that what happens is it puts a big stretch on your abdominals, okay? You may not feel a stretch, but those abdominals are put at a disadvantage. The other thing that does is takes a diaphragm, that's like a plunger for our bodies, our systems. It takes that diaphragm and makes it kind of flat, right? It's attached to the front edge of these ribs. So if we're here and we want to sit up on the front edge of our ribs, or sit up on the front edge of our sit bones and stick our ribs forward, we now have a flattened diaphragm and a weak abdominal core, okay? And so that is why I want to encourage you guys to not get too much into that forward upright posture, okay? It really could be causing a lot of problems. And posture really, so there are some case studies out there, and I have case studies of my own clients and patients, but where you've been told to just bring your shoulders back. Let me show you. One, I do have some pictures. Of course I have pictures. Okay, so this girl here, okay, it's hard to see. She came in to see me because she kept being told that she needed to do retract her shoulder blades. She needed to do rhomboid work. That's what she kept being told, because her scapula were winging. And that's true. Her scapula, if you see that angle I put up top, we're not sitting at a nice flat angle. But the solution was not to force this, because underneath that, she had a rib cage that really was not supporting her shoulder blade. Okay, so the solution was for me to make her, if you see this, look, she's not really bad, but if you see that line down there, you see where her center of mass is more towards the forefoot, okay, not back by the heels. Okay, what we did is by getting her to correct herself into a little bit better position, her center of mass was more balanced, okay, her rib cage came back a little bit, and that gave her a little bit more shoulder blade congruency, okay? But she still had some things to work on. That was just sort of a one-time showing her that her shoulder blade position did not need her to squeeze her shoulder blades back, okay? If you're finding that you're trying to get yourself into this upright posture and it's uncomfortable and it's a challenge, it's probably because that's not really the natural position that you need to be in, okay? So the other thing is, so here's a quote from somebody, from a personal trainer, okay, in New York City. I got this out of an article, a really cool article that came out recently, actually right after I decided I was going to do this live. This article came through, so I've got some good little quotes to share with you. Okay, there's this lady who's a personal trainer in New York City, and she had been dealing with back pain. And she said, you know what? People would say I have perfect posture, is what she was saying. I was in the military. She did bar classes, and she looked like she had our ideal perfect posture, yet she was in a lot of pain. And when she discovered that really a good posture is more about being able to keep our rib cage and centered over top of our pelvis, and keep our center of mass more equal front and back and right to left, by the way she was breathing, that is what gave her comfort. She now no longer forces herself to be in this upright posture. She embraces this little bit of a I'm going to show you what that really the ideal posture is, but a little bit of a controlled It's going to feel like a controlled slump, but you won't necessarily look like a slump, okay? So what I'm saying is, so these are the way we typically define postures, okay? If you go to PT school or anything where you talk about posture and alignment, these are the type of postures that you might come across as all these guys over here are examples of bad posture, and this one is an example of good posture. This is what we're told. Now, I'm not saying that any of these are good, but what I am saying is this one could use is maybe not awesome, okay? See how his ribs are a little, they're forward. They're forward of that pelvis. This picture is not too bad, but you can tell you've got this rigidity going on. His shoulders are back there by his hips, okay? What I'm telling you is in that position, here's a more detailed position of that posture, okay? You see how when we sit in that, quote, upright ideal posture, we get a lot of compression on the back of our spine. We get this opening of our abdominal area, right? The front rib cage elevates, the lower rib cage and pelvis, or not the lower rib cage, the pelvis, the lower abs will go down closer to the floor. So you get this weakening and stretching of those abdominals. The result is a lot of things, but the most obvious thing I want you to see is how that brings your center of mass forward. Okay, center of mass needs to be over our heels, over our ankle bones. And so what this is doing, he looks awful, he looks nice and upright, but there is a lot of neck tension going on. You know, there's a lot of fallout that he's experiencing from that. Okay, so I want you to see that this, okay, has quite a few flaws. All right, and I want you to see what that looks like from the inside. Try not to get you my next picture on here. Okay, so here is a depiction of what I would dictate as a good posture, okay, which means basically that the diaphragm is allowed to be in a good dome. This red here is a diaphragm, and it comes around and attaches to our spine, okay? And then there's another red line coming up here, which is your psoas. We've talked a lot about how that relationship is there. So the ideal situation is that we have a nice dome of a diaphragm, because then it's efficient, then it can fill air equally, and then it's not trying to be a muscle that holds you up. Okay, here when that diaphragm is flat, here's where the ribs are flared. The pelvis will then want to drop forward. Okay, this may look like that upright posture. You may think it looks really good, but those abdominals are on a stretch. Okay, that diaphragm is flattened. That diaphragm is holding you up. Okay, your diaphragm is not able to do a lot of really good, efficient breathing in that way, right? We've talked a little bit about this, and maybe you haven't all caught it, but in order for you to draw air into your lungs, this pressurized system, that's our respiratory system, this is your diaphragm, okay? If it's not in a big, so it starts in a dome, and then it suctions air in, like if you had like this plunger driving up into your diaphragm. Now, if you have a diaphragm that's flatter, okay, we have a diaphragm that's flatter, okay, there's not a whole lot of ability to draw air into your lungs, okay, and there is a lot of compression going on because of where that diaphragm inserts into your lumbar spine. There is a lot of compressing going on there, okay. So, what I want to show you is what a good posture is. I'm going to show you a picture in sitting, and then I'm going to show you in standing and give you some cues, okay? The important thing is to realize that posture is, it's a reflection of your ability to fill and breathe evenly through all areas of your rib cage and your lungs. Filling that equally, and it's also the absence of compression of ligaments in that. So if your posture is, if you are not filling very well in any one of these areas of your lungs, when we're forward in that upright posture, we're filling a lot up here. And that air physically pulls us forward. And it gets in the way from being able to bend. That air is literally in the way. So in order for us to balance ourselves, our center of mass front and back, we have to have a balance of airflow going on in the front and back. Right and left, we have to have a balance of airflow. So I want you to think about posture as a reflection of air airflow respiration versus locked in, upright, how good do I look, right? Because that's creating a lot of problems. So in order for us to get that airflow into the rib cage, there are a whole bunch of exercises that you can do. It depends on maybe where your dysfunction is. It is interesting, isn't it, Melinda? This is like, I've been teaching this a lot lately. Obviously, I teach it all the time, but it's been something that has come up a lot lately. And I said, I think I need to get this out, So, okay. So in order to fully fill those lungs, there are exercises you can do, and those are things that I'm actually going to be holding a workshop, so to speak. I'm going to posture redefined. Okay. And I'm going to give a lot of activities on how to actually help yourself be able to do this better. Okay. Right now, it's just kind of like educating you. So if any of you are interested in that and want to dive more into this, let me know. I'll give you the details on that. Send me a comment, private message, and I'll make sure you get that information when it comes out. But I am going to dive deeper into this at some point. But for now, I want to show you a good picture of actually, I'm going to show you in standing so I can talk to you about the cues, okay? So we need to have that center of mass over our feet. Okay, you can't see my feet, but you can get the general idea, okay? So here is where we tend to think is good upright posture, right? Okay, ab wall, we talked about that. Lax, diaphragm's flat, compression going on here, and then in order to get yourself forward, you're having to use your head, okay? So if we could get our airflow to pull us back, that is what the solution is, okay? But here are your cues to stand, and I want you to try these cues. They're simple cues that should be able to help you even if you are not perfectly aligned, so to speak, okay? But instead of having your weight on your toes, when you stand, okay, I want you to think, the first thing I want you to think is, I want to start rocking back my whole body. Rock that whole body back as if it's one line here. To the way that I feel my heels. Center of mass on my heels. That's cue number one. Now, I may almost feel like I'm falling backwards. So there's a couple of things you need to do to keep you from falling backwards. Exhale. Breathe out. Get those abdominals and that pelvis to connect. Keep them connected. So that's going to keep me from falling backwards, okay, so I got weight on my heels and I exhale, okay? Then what I want to do is continue to breathe. That's the challenge. That's what I can help you with. Okay, Kristen, this is great, but I feel really rigid and I can't move, can't breathe. Okay, well, that's because you can't get air anywhere else. But try to give yourself that cue to exhale. That's going to line you up here, allow you to fully expand in all directions. You do want to get a little squeeze, so we don't want these shoulder blades to be like this, okay? So exhale, and then drop those shoulder blades back, those shoulders back a little, but only to get them lined up under your ears, okay? And only without doing that. It's different. Getting your shoulders back should be a gliding along your rib cage, not a extend and throw my rib cage forward. Different. Okay, so weight on heels. I'm falling back, exhale. Abs are on, okay? The other cue you can use is try to get those toes. Don't let them lift off the ground. Try to get those toes to actually grab the ground a little bit without bringing your center of mass forward. That's the other way to keep yourself from falling back. Exhale, find those toes on the ground. A little squeeze of the shoulders, and then just make sure you're looking upright, straight ahead, maybe even a little bit above the horizon, okay? And so that is the new ideal posture, okay? This, okay, here. So the other thing that happens when you're here is it locks you in. You can't really rotate, you can't really move, you can't really go side to side, okay? It locks these joints in. So even from an athletic standpoint, we should be able to function like this. If this is really foreign and really hard to do, we need to get you in that class, okay? We need to talk about how to make that easier. So in sitting, instead of having to feel your heel bones, you feel your sit bones, Okay, a lot of the times we will sit. Well, here, I'll just show you so I don't have to move my camera around. See how she's sitting way on the front end of her, she's like sitting on her pubic bone almost, okay? And she's got this nice, you know, wow, that looks beautiful, okay? This is also not what I want you to do. That is a slump, okay? What we want to do is more like this, okay? So I'll talk to you about the feet placement in a minute, but I want you to first talk about, instead of getting your weight on your heels when you're standing, it's about having your feet contact the floor and allow yourself to get onto those sit bones. There's two of them, a right one and a left one, okay? Make sure you can feel those and you're not sitting up here and really, first of all, hanging on ligaments, protruding that pelvis or rib cage forward, right? Find those two sit bones, and then what? You exhale. Bring that rib cage and that pelvis, connect them. And that will allow you to keep control over that diaphragm position. And it will allow you, if you have the capability, to fill on all sides of your rib cage. Okay? So feet planted, if you could get your feet, you really want them to be to where your hips are at a 90-degree angle, or maybe even your knees a little higher than your hips. Okay? You certainly don't want your knees lower than your hips. The other thing I want you to think about is not having that lumbar. How many of these chairs, posture chairs, have this lumbar support that pushes you forward? Do you know why that's comfortable? That's comfortable to you because it props you into your compressed position. It's not good for you. It may feel comfortable because you don't have the ability to do this, and so I need to help you figure that out. So one of the things I will tell people first offhand is deflate that. Deflate. There's there may be a transition if somebody's really been in that posture for a long time, but don't just put it there because you think that's what you're supposed to be doing. And those lumbar rolls that go in your chairs, This, let me see if I can find it. Watch this picture here. It says, keep your back supported so that your trunk remains slightly rounded. Where's he at? The entire trunk is supported. It's even a little bit thicker up top, okay? Because we don't want to jam that rib cage, that bottom rib cage forward. Your spine is supposed to curve up top. It's not supposed to slouch, but it should come back. See that? I should be able to see my arm kind of in between my rib, but equally in between both of my front and back ribs, okay? Not behind them, not in front of it, right down the middle, okay? So if you need to put some sort of support there, it's probably because your abs are not really good at holding you in that position, okay? But I do not want you to put something there to block you like this. You can stay here longer because your muscles aren't really working. You're just hanging on your ligaments, okay? You know what's working? Your diaphragm. It's holding you up, okay? But it's supposed to help you breathe, okay? You can't do both efficiently. So lumbar support is not necessary. It's actually detrimental in ways, okay? Feet need to be flat on the ground. You actually can put one foot up a little, like put a little book there, and sometimes it helps to shift a little bit. Make one foot a little higher, and then make the other foot a little higher by putting it on a book. Yes, I guess you did need this. Okay, and so, or you put both of them up on the floor if you're one of these people that's a little bit height challenged. Okay, you might have to have your both feet propped up, but you don't want your knees down below your hips because that makes it pretty much impossible to keep that weight on the sit bones. Okay. So this lady here is a perfect depiction. It's hard to see, okay? She's actually pretty good. Her shoulders are almost, her front and back ribs are almost equally visible around her shoulders. That arrow here is showing you that she is, where's my finger? Okay, that she's pulling her rib cage. This part of her rib cage is the one part that might touch the chair. Okay, we don't want to have this big gaping space right here. You need to be able to let your rib cage glide back. Imagine it gliding back so it sits right on top of your pelvis. Okay, not in front, behind. So really simple cues. Okay, are to find either your heels, allow your entire weight as a whole to come back to your heels where you may feel like you're going to fall backwards. Exhale to get that congruency, okay, and to keep control over that diaphragm. Keep your center of mass where it belongs. Keeps you from falling backwards. That's what we should be doing, okay? That's the muscle that should be working, okay? And then a gentle pull back of the shoulders, but not by bringing our chest forward. And then looking upright, we can talk, there'll be a time for that. We talk about desk setup, where, your vision, you really need to be set up to where we're not looking down all the time. That's a challenge, okay? Any questions on that so far? I know that is a big concept. I went to go around in cars and deflate. All those back, they shouldn't be jamming you forward. Again, you might be able to stay there for a longer period of time, but that's not okay. So if you do have a problem with holding yourself in that position or breathing in that position or finding that position, you need to consider this workshop that I'm going to have, where I really actually bring you through exercises to make that possible for you. In the meantime, work on those habits and undoing the bad habits, okay? I want to show you one more example of how posture is really about airflow, okay? So some of you may have seen these pictures before. This is more of a right and left, okay? Now, if you remember, I've talked to you a lot about how we are different in our core and in our whole body on right versus left, okay? So there is a tendency for us to fill better on one side of our rib cage than the other. And that'll create this sideways asymmetry in a posture. So this, dun, dun, dun. All right. So take a look at this guy here. I know this guy pretty well. All right, but here actually the side that's sloping, because this is reversed, that's actually his right side sloping down, and his left side is elevated. You know what he was struggling with? He was struggling with nerve pain right there coming from that left side of his neck. It's compressed. Can you see that? So just like we can compress the back of our spine, just like we can compress the back of our spine by sitting in that too far forward posture, if we're sitting in that sideways posture, he's creating a compression on that. This is the left side of his neck, okay? So what did I do with him? Very first day, I didn't stretch a thing. I didn't needle, though it seems like maybe I could have done some massage or needling over here. I had him get himself so that he could fill that right side, okay, this side that's lower. Remember, we're flipped. So I could fill that side with air. Okay, that's all I showed him how to do, was how to get his diaphragm to work better for him and to fill his lungs more evenly. And this is how he looked. Okay, so look at that side by side. Breathing only, lungs filling. Okay, you see how your lungs serve such a role in your posture and holding yourself up in good positions. You can see a little bit. So this is how he came in on visit 2. Still pretty good, but I made him even better. You see how he wasn't filling air into his lungs forward and back. And so that made him kind of this longer here. He didn't have that scapula. His shoulder blade muscles weren't able to help him very much because he wasn't expanding. I had to work then on the opening front and back. And then he looked a lot better after that. Okay? So only breathing. It's the only thing I did with him, and the pain went away, which is that's the cooler thing. Okay, so don't get super caught up on, do I look like I'm slumping? Don't get super caught up on what you have heard as proper posture. Don't get so caught up on what you're seeing. Sometimes what you see may look like a flat back or whatever, and it may not really be true. You need to be able to think of these things. Can I feel my heels? Can I exhale and feel my abdominals? Can I keep my center of balance even? Okay, front and back. And then if I can get my shoulder blades back, awesome, without allowing this to happen. Okay? All right, Melinda wants in on the workshop. Whoop, whoop. I'll give you details on that as they come. But I want to teach you guys how to make this possible. Okay, some good cues that you can start working with and undoing a lot in here. This takes the longest. I am seeing somebody, and this has been the longest thing to change, is, but I've always heard this, but what about this? And it's just a constant reminder that there's a better way, that those old ways that you were ingrained in your mind, okay, that's really hard to undo. So I want you to start thinking about those things, and then consider that workshop. And I'll give you some good exercises to do to help make this possible for you, okay, and give you some good ways to deal with maybe, how to make this, like, relate it to sitting in a car, or relate it to maybe sleeping posture, relate it to sitting at your desk, things like that, okay? All right, well, I hope this was helpful. And let me know when you have questions that pop up, or if you're not sure that you understand exactly what this cue is, or am I doing this cue right? Or can you tell me this part again? Okay? But you guys have an amazing day. Thank you for listening, and look out for info on the workshop. All right? You guys have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.